Here we have the completed blaster. After cutting out a lot of material, I was actually able to fit the flywheel cage 1.5 centimeters farther back, or thereabouts, so that it can actually grab the darts when the pusher mechanism pushes them forward. A couple of things you need to know if you are going to do this mod. You will have to get rid of the safety switches in here. The magazine lock switch has to be taken out, as well as the original trigger switch, actually, because of the amount of space that the new pusher mechanism takes up. You have to relocate the pusher switch behind the trigger, which is really easy to do. You will have to cut out part of the battery tray underneath here, and actually cut out the bottom of the battery tray and move it upward to make space for the circuit board, which will now have to rest underneath the battery tray because there's no room for it up here. When you move the flywheel cage back, it takes up the space occupied by the jam door safety switch here, so that has to be removed. You will have to cut out part of the jam door. This is the only external sign that the pusher mechanism has been replaced, because in order for the jam door to flip up, you have to cut out part of the back of it. Now, you don't have to cut out quite this much. You could get away with a little bit less, but there's still going to be a hole through it there. I did add a safety switch, a pusher return switch, which uses a bit of a different live center circuit than we're used to. It uses this highlighted circuit right here instead. So what it does is the board provides either a positive or negative lead to connect to the negative side of the motor to either run it or break the motor. But what you do is you cut that lead and you put a switch in here. This is the switch that you would attach to the pusher mechanism right next to the pusher arm. And you connect the common terminal to the motor, connect the one that's labeled normally open back to the circuit board, and then the other terminal over directly to negative. What this does is that when the pusher arm is forward, the motor is allowed to keep running, and then when it's in the return position, it'll either run or stop depending on what the circuit board tells it to do. The better way to do this would just be to cut this wire here and connect it to a relay, which is what I'm going to do eventually, but this is also an option. And it seems to work pretty well. It should be a lot more reliable than the belt feed mechanism.